What's up, everybody? The IAG Thursday thing, this thing that we do every Thursday, and we've been actually doing a pretty good job of doing every Thursday. Where no matter what's going on, even if we're at the track, other side of the planet, something, we're gonna give you some sort of content. We're all gonna hang out, have a good time, meet some new people, maybe accidentally learn something. God forbid. Um, this week, we've got a killer. Absolutely. We've I don't get guests like this very often. I'm really stoked about this one. Super OG in the community. And I think somebody who might even be able to beat me in the NASIOC member number test. It's gonna be close. He is that OG though. But first, we have producer Jordan here. He's actually back at home, and I'm back at home. But producer Jordan's on here. He's running in the background, trying to keep us all sane and fix these technical difficulties with our new equipment. I don't know what we would do without him. And Randy hastily made our thumbnail today, even though like this man got it to me at the last second, and then we already had the thing made. He got a lot going on. Dude is busy. Okay, dude is busy. This week we have Dom from GetaDomTune on. Dom, how are you doing, my guy?
Hey man, how you doing? It's good to be here.
Dude,
OG. Yeah, so my original member number was 10,700, and I think it was either 28 or 82, something like that. But if you go on NASDAQ now, that name has been deleted because Nick and I had a bunch of conflict back in the day. So that one is no, dude. I get along with everybody all the time. Nobody ever hates me.
All right.
Yeah. Well, so you know me, right? You know me. You know that I like the truth and I like integrity. And when he stole that website from Alex, it was I was one of the champions for Alex. You know what I mean? Like I was not cool with the theft and the backstabbing and the stuff that went on. And so I was vocal about it. And then I got my ass banned because he can do that. And I was vocal about it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I imagine that. So you were actually there in the heat of all the iClub NASIOC shenanigans. So
yeah, I technically I joined when it was iClub, right? I technically joined when it was iClub. And then Nick hijacked the server, the database, right? Took it to another server, fired it back up again, and then changed the titles and stuff, and then started adding fees, for the businesses and advertising, that kind of stuff. Because Alex didn't want to do that, right? Nick saw an opportunity to make money, and Alex was like, "No, I don't want to make money. I want to be free and have everybody enjoy it." And Nick was like, "I want the dough, bro." So he did. So he took it and did it, and then that's how NASDAQ started. And I made a post one time where I was mad about it, and I made just a joke and it was a joke to my friends because my friends knew that there was this thing that I had in the military going on where I don't even know how it started. Let me put it that way. Okay, I don't even know how it started, but the higher ups, like chiefs and senior chiefs, and even some lieutenants on my sub, they were being told that I was banging people's wives. And I wasn't, right? But they were spreading this around. And so I jokingly said on my own forum, what, should I go bang his girlfriend or something to get him back for being a dick? And then he flipped out, how dare you? And I'm like, man, why are you so insecure about this? You think it's possible? What's her number? And so I just kept pushing his buttons, and so he banned me. So
you'd never do that.
No. I mean, I wouldn't actually do that, but I would definitely push his buttons and get banned. Yeah.
With somebody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time. So, I mean, it's when I joined the military, I was very green, right? I had dealt with childhood shit, multiple step parents and, alcoholics and druggies and child abusers and all that stuff that a lot of people deal with growing up with having so many step parents on both sides. But I hadn't dealt with the type of people that were in the military with the constant harassing each other, getting each other's shit, testing each other. Like that part of my life, I didn't have. I didn't have that before. And so when I joined the military, it was, like saying something offensive to somebody just to get a reaction was something I didn't do and I wasn't exposed to, right? Because when people said those things, they meant it when I was growing up, right? So it was totally weird for me. It was like a shock if someone would say something mean, and I was like, oh my god, like what the fuck's this guy's problem? And so I was fighting everybody, and they're always like, dude, it's a joke. Like we're just trying to get a reaction out of you. And unfortunately, the reaction they were getting was well beyond what they were actually hoping for because I was swinging on them. And so it took me a while to understand that it was just dudes being dudes stuck in a steel tube. So eventually I got that, and eventually that seeped into who I am. And that's kind of why, I give people a hard time all the time, but now I can do it. Now people can harass me, whatever. But at first I was not ready for it. I was not ready for it at all.
No, I don't think a lot of people are ready for it. Like when I was in the Corps, like it's different. You got to have thick skin. You learn to have thick skin really fast.
I did not initially. Yeah, I definitely did not initially. So, but I got it now. I mean, people call me an asshole and a snake oil salesman and, all kinds of stuff every day now. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like some guy was like, you're washed up, old man. I'm like, yep, washed up. That's me, whatever. Like, all kinds of stuff. So I just like, whatever.
About some of your history, man. You've been around a very long time. Like we just said, you were around in iClub. I don't know if you joined before the original WRX hit or after, but you were
before.
Yeah, with a 10,000 member number, you would have had to have been. So you're probably the OGest that we have had on this program. So
how far back do you want me to go? Like how deep in the story do you want?
Well, I mean, let's just try to. We could be here all day talking about your crazy ass story. How'd you get it? How'd you get into Subarus in the first place, and then how'd you get into tuning them?
Okay. I'll try to make it not quite as long as I did on flat irons. It was like an hour and a half into it, and he's like, "You've only answered the first question. I think we need multiple parts." I'm like, all right. So yeah, I would say 97, I think it was 97, 98. I had a 1996 Ford Escort LX. I had purchased it for my wife at the time, and it was automatic, four-banger, little coupe, with the wing on it. It was cute. It was a cute little thing in 96. That was cool, but it wasn't fast. And I got the extended warranty on it, thank God, because I went through multiple engines and transmissions on it. So that $1,700 warranty saved me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on it. But the main place I got all the work done was this dealership that was a Ford Subaru dealership. And when I was in there for my monthly, my car's broken, I was talking to the service advisor who I came to know quite well for all the times I spent there. And I was wandering around the showroom, and there was this car, and it had big fog lights and a scoop on the hood and a little wing on the trunk. And I was, what is this? That thing is awesome. Like I was in love with it instantly. I'm sitting in it and I'm just like, this thing is cool as shit. And I go direct to the service guy. I'm like, hey, I go, what's this Subaru thing all about? And he goes, you know what? He says, Subaru, huh? He says, I'm telling you, it's the best kept secret in the automotive industry. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, look at my bay. They had like 16 bays, right, at this dealership. He goes, you see any Subarus out there? I was like, just Fords, man. He's like, exactly, just Fords. And I was like, okay, all right. So I was excited that maybe a car wouldn't break all the time like my Ford did. And then I was also in love with the looks. And that day I went home and started doing searches. Right now, the internet is young. I think that's really young in 97, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still learning about stuff. And I learned about WRC. First time I ever heard of that. So I learned about WRC and all these Subarus. And I said, this is my next car. This is my next car. And one day I was driving, this is in upstate New York, by the way. One day I was driving through upstate New York, and I see this dealership, and I see up on the hill They have these cars, and one of them lined up was white. It was a coupe, and it was a 2001. And I was like, holy shit, that's even better looking. Like I instantly was even more enamored with the car than I thought I would ever be. So I sold everything I had, which was two cars, a truck, a motorcycle, and a four wheeler. I sold all my stuff to buy a Subaru, a 2001 2.5 RS. I got it on October 24th, 2000. It cost me 21,000 something dollars. And that was my first brand new car I'd ever purchased. And I still have it. I still have it to this day. And at the time, 167 horsepower was, a lot more than my Escort had. It wasn't nearly as much as my Le Mans had. I had a 72 Le Mans that I built 455, and then I built the transmission, and I did all this stuff because I've been a gearhead since I was a young kid. And it ripped, but the Subaru wasn't that fast, but it was still faster than the Escort, and it got way better gas mileage than everything else I had. So,
which is amazing. That's just show you how bad some of those '90s Fords were.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It had no power and no economy compared to the Subaru. Yeah, it was insane. But I already had I had a stereo because it was the '90s, right? Everyone had big bass and multiple speakers and a deaden head unit with multi-disc changer and all that stuff. So I had all that sitting in the garage waiting for the car to get delivered. The car gets delivered. I drive it to the car stereo place, give them a stack of stuff, buy more stuff from them. And so I pick up the car a couple days later, and I've got a couple hundred miles on the car, and I already got a big stereo in it. And I just got orders to go to Pearl Harbor. So I had to go from New York to Hawaii. So then I drove it across the country, dropped it off in Oakland, and they took it on a boat. And then I flew over to Hawaii and waited a month for my car. So I didn't even have it very long at all. And then I was without it again. And then I got it in Subaru. I got the Subaru in Pearl Harbor, got it back. But I'm also going to sea, so I didn't get to drive it much because I'm on a submarine. I'm going out, for months at a time. And somehow with that, I still managed to make it to the track. And the first day I went to the track, it was a drag racing night. It was a Wednesday. I go there and I'm just watching the drags. I don't know anybody, right? I'm still new there. And these guys approach me and they're like, "Hey, is that your car?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, my name's John. I forget this guy's name. It turns out he was a porn star. Whatever his name is, and some other guys." And they're like, we're in a Subaru club locally, and you want to check it out. Like, we have these cars. So I was like, "Yeah, what's a Subaru club?" I was never in car clubs before. So
the early community was.
Yeah, I mean, it was early and young and small but tight. Everybody was super cool.
Everybody
We were definitely united under a common cause, and we all had the passion, and we had it strong. It was definitely a strong passion for sure. And so I, immediately was part of the car club. And in the first year of owning the car, I put 29,000 miles on it while being out to sea for 6 months of it. So basically in 6 months, I put 30,000 miles on almost. Yeah. I was driving all over the island. I was racing. So every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I was racing the car. They had drags on Wednesday and Friday. They had autocross on Sunday, and they had track racing on Saturday. And they didn't have this raceway. It was called HRP, Hawaii Raceway Park. And they had a long course and a short course. And I'm modifying the car. I'm adding suspension bits to it, trying to get the handle better, putting bigger brakes on it, getting it better. And I'm out there on the short course, waxing C5Zs and Ferrari F550 Maranellos and all of that in the early 2000s. And on the short course, but it goes really tight. And those guys were pussies and couldn't drive. But as soon as the long course opened up, which had 2 half-mile straights, I was smoked. The power wasn't there. I couldn't keep up with that. Yeah, I'd catch them on the winding sections. I'm on their bumper coming on the big sweeper, leaving the tight section onto the stretch. I'm on their, if not next to them, ready to pass them, and they go, I take off down the track. And
see on the big
okay, yeah. And then I catch them again in the next winding section. So I was driving the Subaru, and I'm like, I need power. Like I need more power, obviously. And then they announced the WRX, and I was at first very upset. I was like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't have the WRX before. I got this car now. Now they have the WRX, and I got the slow one.
Not
And
much
then I
more
saw,
expensive either. That's the
say
crazy
what?
part. From when you bought your RS
Uh-huh.
to when the WRX released, it only went up like $2,000. Like it wasn't much.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you,
I was pissed. And then I saw a picture of it, and I was like, sweet, dodged a bullet. I don't want that
yeah,
WRX car. It's just bug eye thing with 4 doors, no coupes. Like I was, all right, cool. I got the right car. I was happy then. But then they finally hit the area, and guys in the club started buying them. And I'm going on track days with them, and the boost is coming in. I'm like, oh shit, this is what I need. I need power. And so I was saving up for a turbo kit. And back then, your options were lewd speed. I think,
there's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
yeah, right. I think did Shiv Division have a turbo kit back then? I think
I
Shiv
think
had a turbo
Victory did
kit.
one,
Yeah.
and couldn't you get didn't it wasn't APS. It
Mm-mm.
was an Aussie company had one. One of the larger Aussie companies had one too.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was at the time.
Yeah.
But initially, I think it was just Loot Speed and somebody else, and then Shiv,
Yeah.
and then another one came in, right? And so I bought the Loot Speed kit without intercooler. It was just a T3, T4, no intercooler, bolt-on kit. And I put that on there, and then I learned the woes of having an inadequate fuel system and inability to tune anything, right? So then I was in the piggyback world with FTC ones from Split Second. I was putting bigger injectors in the car that, obviously I couldn't do much about. Um, yeah, all kinds of shit. No intercool, like I said. Then Cobb came out with cams for the car, so I bought, which I think were just webcams. And don't do a search for that online. You won't get what you want. Yeah. And then so I put a set of cams in it. And so I had the cammed, turbocharged RS with no intercooler. And about that time, the 04 STI finally hit. And there's actually a video on YouTube. You can look it up. Impreza RS versus 04 STI, I think, is what it's called. And it's done on my old Sony digital camera, little square thing,
Yeah.
and it has this in the audio. It sounds like someone is cranking it. It sounds like an old freaking video camera. You can hear it. It's on YouTube still too. And I'm racing this guy Dan, his 04 STI, and I smoke him. And we get back to the pits, and he's like, "What the heck, man? What are you doing? That thing is crazy." And I was like, "Well, but his car was stock, right? His car was stock 04 STI. It was brand new." And I'm like, "Oh, I've been working on it for a while." And I'm looking at his car. I'm checking out this STI. It's a different body style now. It's not a bug eye, so it's more attractive. And I look in the car. I go, "Where are your seats?" And he's like, "Oh, I took them out for weight." And I was like, "Oh man, I didn't even think about that. It didn't even occur to me to think about weight with drag racing, right?" So I
Yeah.
pop my trunk and I pull out my toolbox and I pull out these steel pipes. I got a ton of steel pipes in the trunk because I was making piping for an intercooler and exhaust. I'm playing. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I can take all this shit out so you run the time." He's like, "That was all in the car on the last run?" I was like, "Yeah, I didn't even think about it." And he's like, "Jesus Christ. Well, what is it?" And I go, "Oh, these are the pipes for my intercooler." He goes, You don't have an intercooler?" I'm like, "Not yet." He's like, "Fuck you, man." Like walked off. I was like,
You
"Okay."
man.
So that night, the video that you see online is it's a 13.3 at 103, I think is what it was. That was with
Yeah.
everything in the car, and then I dumped everything out. And that night, I ran a 12.9.8 at like 106 or whatever. So it was like I just hit that, and that was December of 2003. But yeah, so this is my first turbo car, right? This car that I turboed was my first turbo car, and I was obviously hooked.
Yeah.
Um, T3, T4 turbo on a 2.5 liter. There's some lag, and when it hits, though, it was a riot. It was a good feeling, back then.
Yep.
Oh, and of course, my Blitz. How was it called? What did Blitz call their blow off valve? Oh, it was a Blitz blow off valve, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know.
because ATS was SSQV and Turbo
Yeah.
Excess was RFL. So you had, I don't even remember what the Blitz was called. It had some like 3-letter thing to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I had on there for my blow off valve. And of course, when I first put on there, it was like whomps, 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 whomps everywhere I went, right? Yeah, the original racer.
I mean,
And
you got
but yeah, it was a good time. I had a blast. The Super Sound, that's right. Yeah, the Blitz Super Sound blow off valve. That's right. That's what it was.
Nice.
Thank you, clappers.
That is Brew from Penguin Garage in the chat.
Oh, what's up, Drew? Drew's purchased some things for me in the past.
Drew's an OG himself.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
you
I put
got
earbuds in for this.
you got this turbo car, okay?
Yeah.
I'm assuming at one point you put an intercooler on it. At some point you had to go, I got to tune this damn thing.
Yeah.
So is there a story behind that? There's got to be.
Yes, there is. Absolutely, there is. So like I said, I was using the FTC one from Split Second, which was a fuel timing controller, is what it was called, and it had timing retard based on boost, and it had a map sensor scaler as well. And so I used this to adjust the fuel because I put 550cc RC engineering piece of shit injectors in it. So I have this car with bolt-on turbo kit, 550 really bad injectors, an FTC one, and no other ability really. And a map clamp, right? Because the stock map sensor. So I was trying to tune it with that, and I got varying degrees of success, but I was able to crank the boost up, and I had it cranked up, big time back then. For the stock engine, everyone's like, oh, they fail at 7 pounds. I was running like 14 to 20 pounds on this thing without an intercooler, and the FTC one. And I had that for until I would say it was, I think it was February or March of 2004. I got transferred back to New York again to go teach at the nuclear power station, the training facility there. And there was this announcement that was made like right before I got my orders from this place in California, in Newark. They were called Hydra Nemesis from Hydra, and they were saying we're releasing this new system. We're looking for beta testers, right? Well, the beta testers weren't getting shit for free; they had to pay for it. But they were like, we're looking for someone to try our stuff, and so I was like, yeah, it was like $950 something in $2004, which is a lot of money back then. And I was transferring, so I literally shipped the car to Oakland again, fly over there, pick the car from Oakland, drive to Newark, which is pretty close to Oakland. Drive to Newark, give it to them, and go walk around Newark, super safe. And while they install this hydrant in my car and put a bass tune on it. And so they have it, and looking back now, actually it was not very many hours considering what they had done. It was only a handful of hours, like 3 or 4 hours. I come back, I get the car, and then it was Andrew Nam was the main guy, and then his co-driver, whatever his name was, I forget. I actually like the other guy better. But they installed it and they tuned it and they got the car and they go, holy crap, man, this is the fastest turbo RS we've ever been in. Like, what did you do? And I was like, I just put turbo cams and injectors in it, right? Like I didn't do jack, but it's apparently it was well balanced. And I still didn't have an intercooler. So now I have this Hydra Nemesis, and I've never used the software. I don't even think I had a laptop yet, right? So I had to buy a laptop, had to get the software, had to get all that stuff going on. And again, this is 2004 now. And I have to now pick this car up and drive it across the country to New York. So I am stopping places to make adjustments and figure out how the software even works. So
learning how to tune by driving across the country.
Well, to tune that system, right? I started in '93 with carburetors. Right?
Okay,
so I understood fueling.
Like fueling and timing and stuff like that. So this is the first time you've ever like really messed around with an electronic system then?
No, the first time I started with this with an import. Like I did a bunch of like the
Yeah.
Excel EFIs on V8s and Chevy, 350s and that
Okay.
kind of stuff. Remember those old Excels and the original Holiday Sniper throttle body injected unit. I
Sure.
had tuned those. I had done all that stuff, but it's my first time with an import.
Okay.
And I was an idiot, I mean, I had an understanding of how cars work, the engine work, the heat transfer, and that kind of stuff, but I still hadn't had the big step up in understanding engine management like I have now. I still had the whole mentality of more timing is always better, more boost equals more power, and all that shit that just isn't true. But that was, where I was at. A fuel injector is just a hole that opens and closes. The basic things like that turn out to actually be really far from the truth. That fuel mixture explodes, doesn't do that. That was the mentality I was in there, that it just explodes in the cylinder. And that's what you want. I didn't understand what knock was, other than knock was clearly just too much timing. I knew that, but I didn't know like what it really did. So, yeah. Anyway, so I still had all those misconceptions that even some tuners now still have at the time. So now I'm just trying to figure out how it applies to the Subaru more, because now I see the full time map. Right, before with that I had the FTC one, I was just pulling some random amount of timing. Right? I had no idea what the timing was on the car, what it was programmed to do. I just knew that it was too much for boost, so I was pulling timing before. But now I actually got to build the whole time map. And I drove it across the country. Was going through a divorce and some other stuff that was going on at that time. It was really a rough phase. While I'm trying to, as I'm driving, I'm basically getting divorced. Essentially, is like what's going on. So I'm like tuning the car, going through divorce stuff, getting these phone calls that are mean and evil, and and I'm just this emotional wreck moving across the country.
Military thing I've ever heard.
I know, it's dumb. It's dumb. It really is. So I get to New York and I start my new duty station, and I finally acquire an intercooler that was made for a Loud Speed Turbo Kit. It was somebody else's intercooler. They went front mount or sold their Subaru or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but I got an actual Loud Speed intercooler. And then I put that on, and then everything changed. I learned how important intercoolers were and how much of a difference it freaking made. It was insane. And even then, before that, I was running race gas. I was doing toluene. I was doing xylene. I was doing meth injection. Like I was doing all that stuff in place of intercooling before I actually got an intercooler that worked in the car. And none of it was as good as having an actual intercooler. So yes, now we're near the end of 04 when that's happening. I start meeting the guys in New York, the New York Subaru chapter, of NASIOC, and guys are needing help with their cars. Well, I've been, beating on mine for years now. I've been learning the way of the Subaru, learning the way of the turbo now for years, and so I started helping them with their cars. Wasn't a whole lot I can do because it was just like Cobb V1 was just coming out.
You could do some UTEC.
Yes, yeah, UTEC, and I don't think open source was that. No, open source didn't really hit until
Open
like
source
05.
Open source was still a ways off.
Yeah, 05 is when that happened, when the open source thing happened. And I know that because I got transferred down to Virginia in 05. And I started helping this guy at the local dyno shop and run the dyno. He bought a Mustang dyno, helped run the dyno, helped him do tuning and all of that. And then this open source guy, this guy with an Evo, was like, "Have you seen this?" And I'm like, "No, what is it?" He was like, they call it, I don't know, ROM Raider or something at the time. And no, it wasn't ROM Raider. It was something else. ROM Raider was a later name that was changed to in like 08. I forget what it was before ROM Raider.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
OpenECU, I think it was called OpenECU, I think is what it was called.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I started tuning Evos with it, and then I started tuning Subarus with it, and it just became this thing where I started off just helping people out, and then next thing the people were like, "Whoa, can you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can help you out." And then I started tuning it. No, carburetor didn't come out until like 09, I think. Right?
Yeah, carburetor was quite a bit later because that was that was Andrew
Group N
Carberry.
stuff. Yeah, and that was in response to Group N, right? Because
who
Jason,
decoded a Group N ROM.
Yep, and then learning by doing that, got to add a bunch of stuff in and figure out how that all worked. Yeah.
Yep.
So So anyways, now it's 05 and 06, and I'm dyno tuning cars. And like I said, it just started off as something I was helping people with, and next thing I know, they're paying me to do it. And so I'm tuning Subarus, and I'm learning more, but I still have a lot of those misconceptions, at the time. And then I get transferred to Washington State in 2006, and I hook up with the dyno shop over there. And the open source definitions are getting better. The comp stuff is getting easier, like more complete. All that stuff is happening. And I'm booked out 8 weeks in advance, minimum. Surgeline was not Surgeline then. It was PDX tuning. And they were charging like $1,200 a tune. And I came in at $350 a tune. And my schedule filled up and theirs emptied, basically. It's kind of what happened. So I definitely hurt PDX tuning at the time. And yeah, man, I was tuning 5 cars a week and 3 on the weekends. So it was 1 every day after work and then 3 on Saturday. And I tuned those 8 cars a week for like 3 freaking years straight. Hundreds and hundreds of cars. Yeah, start of the race to the bottom. You're absolutely correct. Little tune for tacos. I am absolutely responsible for that. I made my bed in that, and I reaped the rewards out of it by driving the price of tunes down to a number that was almost unsustainable for shops, because now they weren't getting near enough money to pay for the dyno, pay for the power, pay for their stuff. And I'm absolutely responsible for that, and I own that. It was stupid.
You don't know until you do it.
Yeah, right. I was like $300 or $400. These guys are assholes.
Cash in the pocket. You're like, why would somebody charge that much for that? Then after you've like ran a business for a while, you're like, okay, I get it. I'm an asshole. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's absolutely my fault. Yeah, and it was. Obviously, I got known because of it. I mean, you can't be booked 8 weeks in advance without people knowing that you're there, right? That doesn't happen. At 8 cars a week. But it screwed up the whole industry, really. It screwed the whole market for everybody that had a shop. And it was, dude, I was arrogant as shit. It was 06, 07. I still had all the misconceptions. Dude, I fucking knew everything, like it was, it was a time. It was a time for sure.
You were the first tune a lot of people got too. Graham. The first tune Graham ever got was from you.
I was a lot of people's first.
You were a lot
tuning slut. Lance Lucas. I tuned Lance Lucas's car.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah. And I messed it up. At that time, the Subaru knock strategy was just being better identified. And I misunderstood how it was working. I didn't blow his car or anything. I just didn't totally understand the indications at the time. So yeah, I tuned Lance's car. That was probably 07, I think. That was the 607. I still remember emails back and forth where he and I were arguing about how the knock control system worked, and he was right and I was wrong. I remember that. I think that was the first time I was ever wrong.
Somebody like the first time you've never been wrong.
That was it. I had to mark it down. So that was the start of a little bit of a humbling that I needed at the time. Absolutely. And it pushed me to look harder and understand more, because I realized that there were things I clearly did not understand. And then I would say 07, 08, I was trying really hard. I was burying myself in the books again because I stopped learning, like a lot of guys do. They're like, oh, everything, I'm good, And so I started really looking into it a lot, and I was picking things up. But the biggest thing that happened was early 09, and it was Paul Yaw, Injector Dynamics, Paul Yaw. He told me something, and my brain just exploded. Not like, and I can't believe it, but all of a sudden, all these things just like came together. And I was like, holy shit. And it was just about injectors, right? He told me about injectors. And then all of a sudden, so many other things that I've been going that weren't related to injectors, but somehow it all started to make sense. And I started reading more and everything really started to come together. And that's when my drive for more knowledge and understanding just all of a sudden screamed up. And, it was like the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. And the more motivated I was to know as much as I could about it. And then I just
Dunning-Kruger curve moment when you fell off the peak of Mount Stupid.
Mount Stupid, absolutely. Yeah, and I ate it hard. Like when it happened, I was just like, yeah, I buried my face into an ice mountain, eating it while I was snowboarding, kind of thing, and got up and checked for my teeth and was like, holy crap, and had to start over again in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, I hit the education really heavily starting then, and just really pushed hard to understand cars a lot more, and my tuning improved. I started figuring out ways I could make the ECU do things that that it wasn't maybe necessarily meant to do, but how to make it do the things I wanted that was better with the time maps, how to give extra safeties, how to do just a bunch of stuff, and to really and then fuel systems, and thanks to injector dynamics, obviously. Paul gave me a book. Do I have it right here? I do, actually. 1 second.
Yep.
I went to PRI in 2010, and I actually met Paul then, and he gave me this book.
All right.
This is
that internal.
Yeah, internal combustion engine fundamentals.
Okay.
By Haywood. There's a massive glare here. I'm trying to find the spot. Here we go. No glare.
There you go. Internal combustion engine fundamentals by you. I've been handed it. Somebody told me to buy this book once. Is it that good? Oh
yeah,
shit!
It was probably me. Yeah, so the guys at ID signed it for me. the original ID guys, right? The original ID signed it for me, and really just like this was like one of the springboards for everything that is now.
Yeah.
They have a second edition now that's updated past this one. But I sat there at the airport leaving PRI, sitting in the airport with my flight, page 1. And started reading it, yeah, so much good stuff. And at the time, so much stuff I didn't even understand. There were things where I was like, what the fuck is this equation? What the hell is an integral? I had no idea what any of that stuff was. I didn't go college math. I did Navy math for nuclear reactor stuff. So they didn't teach us calculus. They just gave us the final equation that was derived from calculus.
Yes.
And so yeah. Anyways, that, and then I didn't even get, like I said, most stuff in this until I went back to college and did my physics degree, and that's when I started understanding even more of this. But yeah, I would say that was the biggest step. By then, I'd already had my shop. I had a dyno. I was still tuning a ton of cars. I was building engines with varying different geometries, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, it was. That's how I think people outside of your area ended up. A lot of us ended up learning about you around that time when you started messing around with it. You released a video of, and I think this is the first video that the majority of people seen with a 23 destroker. This was one of the very first ones, and I want to say this was like 8. Like it was a while ago. I think it was before 2010. I could be wrong. It was old. Either way.
Is it my black STI, that one?
I don't remember. I remember you basically what got everybody all for lack of a better term, bonered up was you filming your tack as you're making pulls of this damn thing, just sailing past 9,000 RPM. People were losing their shit. And
people saying it was fake.
Yeah. Oh, the amount of people who said it was fake was insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was right near the time where we started Six Star Motorsports, and we had a buddy of ours who he was doing a fairly significant build, and the whole reason I ended up contacting you is he has he had like a disability with his hands, so it was hard for him to shift. So I'm like, if this thing can rev its balls off, he has to shift less. So that was the whole theory of I need to call this guy. This is the perfect build for this, and that's how I ended up talking to you originally. So we ended up buying your engine way back in the day. But yeah, that was one of, oh my god, I remember seeing that on Nasiak and just going, God, and like, we're talking threads all over the place. Like
Yeah.
every car meet in the country was going, oh, did you see that shit? It was insane.
I have it. It's still on YouTube. Like I said, if you look up, I think MPS 9000 RPM STI. I think maybe. Yeah, here it is, right here. MPS 9K STI. Now this has been reposted.
Throw it in the chat, because
Yeah.
it was. I mean dude, that was ruining the internet for its time.
Yeah. Now this is a repost, so the quality is not as good as it used to be on the original one. But
Yep.
I posted in chat. Yeah.
This was the original one. Everybody said this shit was fake.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was on an AEM ECU, and the rev limiter was set at 94, 99, and I would just touch it at the end of the pole. It would just pop, and you hear it hit the rev limiter in that video. And it was it was fun, right? It was fun, but it was an old school GT 3582R, right? The original 3582. It was laggy as balls because it was an original 3582. I had cams that were not appropriately sized. I had just regular BC. I don't remember if they were 272s or 264s or whatever. I think they were 272s. I don't recall. But even then,
because we're all like, man, if that had a better cam in it, would have been so much better.
Yeah. And I think I even said that in like the original post I made on Nasiak about it. I said BC 272 LOL,
and everyone AEM didn't support it.
No, the AM supported everything. Everything worked. It just didn't work well. The AMs had an issue where they would have a hard time reading the cam position. They would lose cam position and the cars would die. Yeah, it was a super common thing. What was that?
We know another brand that does that really bad too. It's why I'm on an M-Tron now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love the M-Trons. I love the M-Trons. Hey, and they kind of pushed those too for the Subarus early on.
Hey.
So.
Yeah. I think I do remember you pushing that. I didn't even give that brand the time of day when people started talking about it. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? I was thinking it was just going to be another like Hydra situation. I'm like, what is this? Nope, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Boy, was I wrong.
Is Graham tuning it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I tuned one recently. I don't know if you saw the video with the sequential on the dyno. And that one's cool because it's in a GR and the SI drive works. So with that one, what I did is I have him on multiple fuel models, but one of them was just TPS, straight TPS, not even TMAP, just TPS. So if he has an issue, he can punch down in intelligent mode and it switches the fuel map to just a TPS based map. So I did multiple fuel maps on his car based on what mode you're in and all that, so that if he ever had an issue on the track, he could just punch down on that button and knocks in TPS mode.
Yeah. That's something they'll never allow me to have.
You just get punched all the time?
Yeah, just
not going fast enough.
Feels weird. No. You just love the pits. I don't care.
Well, the thing is too is I on the dyno, obviously I tuned them both, and both modes were within 2 horsepower at like 690 wheel or whatever the hell it was, within 2 horsepower. So I nailed it. They were both good, but I wanted him to have the ability to switch the fuel maps or the fuel models based on if the EMAP went wrong or TMAP went wrong or something like that. So, but that's something you could do with the M-Tron. You can't do with almost anything else.
Yeah,
you can blend 5 fuel models or 4 or 5 fuel models with the M-Tron, and you can pick which one is in charge based on the strong suit of each one. In some cases, speed density is better. In some cases, alpha N is better. In some cases, pressure ratio is better in some cases, right? And so each of these fuel models always has some benefit and some detractor. And with the Mtron, you can use all of them and tell it, okay, now we're going to use this one and then use this one. And, actually just blend these two, 25 and 75%, and then change it to here. And you can tell it to do all that stuff. You can blend, like I said, 4 fuel models, maybe it's 5, I forget. And just have it, go between and always use the strong suit of all of them. And that's one thing I really love about it.
It was, I was not expecting it just from a driver's standpoint, because I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not a tuner. I'm not. I'm a ship mechanic. I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to tuning, which is definitely really far on the danger side. But from a driver's standpoint, which is something I actually can do, contrary to popular belief, it was night and day from my old engine management to that. It was wild. It was smooth everywhere. And we haven't even started playing with some of the goodies. Like we're going to be doing a electronic blow off valve here soon, electronic wastegate. We're going to be messing with that. So Graham's got plans of doing basically a turbo efficiency concept to where we're just going to bleed just enough boost when we let off the gas with the electronic blow off valve, so we can keep the turbo out of surge. It should be lovely. And it should make this, fairly small displacement thing with a giant turbo more responsive than it's ever been.
Are you doing E-Gate? You see you're doing E-Gate too?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, sweet.
So we're gonna start with a blow-off valve. We also have one of their boost gates, which is, how guys have been using the like the small Bosch throttle bodies on the cold side of the intercooler.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, you should check this out. It's good. All the Aussies are doing this shit now. Now they have this thing called a boost gate, which is basically like a kind of like an electronic wastegate, but you put on the cold side of the intercooler, and you bleed boost that way.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're saying.
So
right, for bleeding. Yeah, a lot of guys just using E-Gates for that.
Then we're gonna go to that, and then we're gonna mess with then we also have an E-Gate to play with too. So, yeah, we're really stoked to start messing with that stuff. Turbo Smart jumped on hard with us on that. So they were like, yeah, you want to do all of this? And we're like, yeah, we're going to play with all of it. And like, here you go.
Sweet. Yeah, that's nice. I'm trying to get the inlet guide vanes going. That's one thing I want to get going. Yeah, like they do in F1. I want to get the inlet guide vanes going.
Okay. So like you're talking almost like variable geometry turbo stuff? Is that what you're
No, it's on the inlet of the turbo. So basically, if you think about the turbocharger, it uses energy to pull the air through the pipe to it, right? So it's using energy to pull it to the pipe, but it's at some velocity based on the output as it's trying to spool up. And then as that air comes in, then it's also got to hit it with the blades and then expend energy moving it into this rotational direction.
And so
right. So the inlet guide vanes is basically like the turbinator or the tornado, whatever it was, right? That swirls it up beforehand. Yeah. And so at the low velocities, it angles it a little stronger so that the compressor isn't using the energy impacting the blades to change direction of the air. It's just using the inertia of the air to change its direction, right? And so it frees up a few percent. It's a few percent. It's like 3 to 5% or something like that. But you get faster spool out of it, and you get higher efficiency out of the compressor. And so they have a steeper angle initially, and then they open up until they're wide open. And so like F1 cars don't even have a throttle body. They use this as like their throttle body and everything.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, 3 to 5% doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when we, especially our time attack series, how ridiculous it's gotten. Like hundredths separate shit. So if there's hundredths of a second in there over a minute and a half lap, like color me interested.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there definitely is, right? I mean, and luckily I know all of that because
at least, like, I shouldn't say easy to implement, but At least we have an area in the engine with the way our turbo sits in a rotated configuration that we've got a little room to kind of play with some stuff in that area.
Mm-hmm. No, you could use it, absolutely. And you could use, like I said, as your throttle body.
Yeah.
So these did not originate in F1. I just want to say that. The inlet guide vanes, the variable inlet guide vanes, did not originate in F1. They actually are on air compressors, big industrial, high volume air compressors and air pumps and all that. They use them to increase the efficiency of the air pumps, and that's where it started, was in industrial use. Yeah, you can look it up, inlet guide vane compressor, and you'll find a bunch of threads, a bunch of companies that make them. They're readily available online. Obviously, they're usually like this big around, right? So getting one that's, appropriate is more the challenge. But yeah, overall, like this technology is not new. It's been there for quite a while. It just is new to be added to cars thanks to F1, because they said, oh, we have a centrifugal compressor. We would like to increase the efficiency of it. And there's this thing that does that. So let's see if we can use it. And they did.
I mean, if any place is going to do it, it's going to be Formula One. So
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, and my
friend Micah comes up with all sorts of whack ass ideas like this.
Well, I was just going to say, I was just saying that, my old roommate Micah, the one who he and I designed the destroker, he worked for Red Bull F1, and he's the one that told me about those guide vanes. So that's not me.
Yeah, you and Mike are like the grandfathers of this whole destroker concept. Weird, like a lot of people got all like kind of butthurt because we started making this engine recently, but like you guys came up with that idea forever ago. And I mean, honestly, you were probably the first one to just sell it as an engine.
Mm-hmm.
I think you even had it listed on your site, but for years, honestly, right up until us, I don't think anybody else was doing it, and it's cool to be able to give people the option of that engine. I'm a huge fan. I wish I would have did it way earlier. I wish I would have listened to Micah years ago. But
dude, I got so much hate on
this 2-liter, man.
So much hate, dude. God, I got so much hate. When I first dropped the 2.3, it was, oh, the power curve sucks. Oh, it doesn't make any torque. Oh, this, oh, that, right? And it was like, and I was telling them, well, yeah, this isn't ideal. This engine's, that was the other thing. It was like 7.8 to 1 compression because I was running STI pistons de-stroked, right? So it was low compression. It was old school turbo. It was cams that were too small and unported heads. Like it wasn't the ideal thing, but the sensation was there as far as like when you're driving, feeling how the car feels and how the engine revs and runs. Like, it was something special, and I knew it immediately when I did it. And Mike and I, like I said, Mike and I came up with this shit in 05 when I was sleeping on his floor. It was end of 05, early 06. I was sleeping on the floor of his room with his parents, his sister, like his family. I was living with them for like 6 months because the house I was in, that guy owned it, was getting transferred. I knew I was getting new orders, but they got delayed. And so I was just in this limbo state. And all my stuff was in a storage unit, and Micah's family was like, you can stay with us. And his parents are so nice and sweet. I love them so much. And it was just, we would sit there, and he was going to ODU, Old Dirty University, which I guess is actually called Old Dominion. I learned that at some point. I always thought it was Old Dirty. Just kidding. But that's what he always called it. And I was laying on his floor, and we sit there at night. People talk about girls, right? Oh, in school and whatever. We weren't. We were talking engine geometry. We're laying there. I'm in my seat bag, all nuzzled up. He's in his bed, and we're staring up at the ceiling, talking engine geometry. It was just the most geeky, fucking gearhead thing that could have ever happened. Just laying there with each other, talking stuff. And the only thing was missing was hand holding. Like we just sat there and talked about these engines, how we were going to make them better, what we were going to do. Like it was really something.
It needed to happen, though.
It did. It did.
It needed to happen. You guys birthed something pretty special at that point with your interesting relationship.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a good time. And so,
totally normal, but like right now, you're at the time that was going on, you had to do it in your bedroom.
That's right. The Brokeback Garage, someone said. Yeah. Next to his drum set, because Micah played the drums, and I wanted to play the drums. My whole life, I wanted to play the drums. And whenever he would leave and go to work and he'd go to school, and I was still there, I'd play his drum set. Or I'd try, at least. I wasn't any good at it yet. I'm way better now. I was going to say about, yeah, so what was that?
You ever watch the movie Step Brothers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I never jerked my balls against his drum set. That never happened. I never understood that, by the way. Like, some guys are like, don't play my drums. Like, I was always like, yeah, hit my fucking drums. Do it. Like, anyone come over, like, do it. I mean, they're there to get beat on. I mean, I hit them with sticks, right? Like, what the fuck? I hit it with a stick.
Okay.
So what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So right. So the 2-3. Right. I started. I started with that. I had custom rods made by Crillo. I went with. They were 3.5 millimeters longer. That was like the most I could fit at the time with like with piston stuff that we had worked out, and and I was getting what's going on? What was the first time? What was the first thing? Let me think about this for a minute. Okay, so Cobb was doing engines, and Cobb was using the NA length rod with their custom JE piston for the Cobb motor. So they were basically an STI block, STI crank, NA length rod from like the 251, which was 131.6 millimeters. And
the one that everybody accidentally orders, and then their piston pops out the top, and then they're like, ah.
Yeah. So my first engine build was with that. And I was really interested in this whole longer rod thing, because it turns out everyone does it. Manly does it, freaking JE does it. Everyone's rods are a little bit longer, it seems. And so I wanted to learn about that. And so I did that. And then I did, what did I do? And then I think I did let's see, let me think about this for a minute. Okay, so the Cobb one was a 2.5. And then I ordered customs from Crillo that were 3.5 millimeters longer. And I put a 2-liter crank on it. And I had custom pistons made. And that was my first 2.3. And that was actually in my white car. That wasn't in the black STR that I had that video of. That was in my white car. I had CNC ported S20 heads with bigger cams and stuff. And I just put it in there. And I think I ran it for a very short period of time before I decided I had to put it in my black car. And so I changed it, and I wanted this variable cam timing. That's what it was. And I wanted something that represented what more people were going to have. And so I didn't even like talk about it until the black car video came out. And even then it wasn't ideal. And that build wasn't even as good as the one in my white car, actually, looking back at it now. That one was a +2 rod. It was just a shelf +2 that I could buy from China. Custom JE piston. No, that wasn't a custom. That was a shelf JE piston. And then, like I said, I had the BC cams, unported heads, and all that stuff. What did I do with that? Oh, I had a polyquad in it. That's right. I remember that now. I had 1 mil bigger valves on opposite corners of the combustion chamber. That was what I did on that one. I remember that now. And that was a big discussion on Asiac too. But anyways, I released it, and there's just haters everywhere. Everyone's dogging on it.
Yep.
Oh, it's less displacement. Oh, it's less torque. Oh, it's less efficient. Oh man, it was so bad.
Thread was amazing.
Yeah. Well, there were so many of them too. It wasn't just that one. There were so many threads of people talking trash about it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that video went everywhere because somebody'd be like, "Hey, have you guys seen this yet?"
Yeah. Guys would crawl out from under desks like, another 2-3, shed the thread on, or thread the shit on. Yeah, they just come out of the woodwork. Yeah, so I started not making friends about that time, really. I think is when most of the hate started happening, when I started to become so polarizing for people, was actually, I think, right around that time, to a level that I had never imagined. And even then, it wasn't even nearly as polarizing as the cooling mod. Holy shit. Yeah. I had no idea that this thing I designed to help people would.
Dude, I swear to God, the shit I hear from people about the cooling mod. Now, we got to talk about the cooling mod. I want to talk about the origins of this. You had been talking about this damn thing, and I had kind of a vague idea what it was. You and I were playing a ton of PUBG at this point. So we'd be hiding in a house, waiting for Circle to come in. You'd be like me, you, Graham, and usually like Spaz or somebody. And
O'Brien.
you'd be, yeah, gangster, yeah. And we'd all
Mm-hmm.
be, and you would start talking about this thing that you're working on. We're like, what in the is he even saying?
Yeah.
But after you released it and you had a couple videos on it, it all started to make sense. But oh my god. So first off, where did the where did this even come from? Like where did you like this the idea had to have spawned from something. Like
Mm-hmm.
where did it exactly spawn from and get you thinking about this?
Well, as you know, cylinder four fails all the time, right? Like
Yeah,
that was the biggest thing. And I spent, by the time I came out with this, I've been doing Subaru stuff for 18 plus years, right? When I finally came out with it.
sure.
And I'd always been seeing cylinder four failing, cylinder four fails, cylinder four fails. And I was trying to figure out why. Like, why does it always happen? There's the standard stuff that from the factory gets more timing. Okay. But it also gets less air. So, it's what's really going on there? And so, I had a lot of theories about it over the years, and I've talked about those theories before, like what was happening, over the years, trying to figure out what was going on. But it was always there, like, what the hell is going on? Why, it's the header is unequal length. Well, I could put an equal length header on it and still fail four. Oh, cylinder four is the last cylinder to get fuel. Oh, but it's actually the first. It's the first one to get fuel. Oh, cylinder four. What was the other one? See, there's just so many. I don't remember what all of them were, but it didn't matter because, the knock sensor placement. There you go. Thank you. The knock sensor placement is on that side. Well, that doesn't matter, right? Like, okay, it's there because it's the most active cylinder. It's why they put it there, right? It doesn't fail because the sensor's there. The sensor's there because it fails, right? That's that aspect of it, right? If you can keep cylinder four knock free, then the other one should be knock free because it's the most aggressive, most, whatever one to knock on. So it used to be the most aggressive, actually, Josh. A lot of older maps, they have extra timing on cylinder four. If you look at the original maps, not like a Cobb modified map. In most of the factory time maps for older cars, they have more timing. So anyways, all these reasons that people were spitting out, it didn't matter. You could pull timing out of it. You could fuel. You could change the header. You could change the intake manifold. You know what? It still fucking failed.
Yep.
So it's not air and it's not fuel. So then what the hell is it? If it's not air and it's not fuel, then what is it? I've done every fuel mod, still fails. And every air mod still fails, right? Spent forever trying to figure this out. And I think it was 2017, I think maybe it was. I'm sure this is distracting. I was sitting there and one of our new techs at the shop, I was just explaining to him how the EJ cooling system worked. I was showing him the flow path. And I'm like, look, so it comes in here and it goes across this tube. On this side, it's in between the two cylinders. And I'm showing the full flow path of the EJ. And I have the diagram from the manual with me. And I'm showing him, see, this is what they're saying here. And I'm explaining to him how this all works. And I look at it and I go, and it comes in on this side. And I look, I go, wait a second. The coolant comes in on the front of cylinder 2, but it's between 1 and 3. I'm looking at it, and I, I've been doing fluid flow forever in the military. I did fluid flow in college. I'm doing a fluid flow, and so I can look at stuff, and I swear to you, it's just this intuition I have. I can see the movement of energy through systems. I can see where it's going. I can see where the heat is going. I see what's conducting, what's radiating, what's convection. I can. It's a talent I have, and I'm staring at this thing, and I'm seeing the energy flow through the block, and I'm like, this spot's wrong. This spot's hot. And so I was like, as I'm describing it to him, I just stopped mid-sentence. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is it. And he's like, what's it? I go, this is why cylinder 4 fails. He was like, what are you talking about? I go, look at the flow. Look at where the water's going. And so I described to him what I'm seeing and how the water's going. And I'm like, it's not getting shit in this corner over here. This is a whole section. If you look at, cylinder 4 failures and how the exhaust side is usually where it fails. It's expected it's hot side, but that's where the second wave starts. And so anyways, as I'm describing the coolness of this guy, that's when I realized, what it was. And so I said, we need to do experiments. And so I got some RTDs. I bought some fancy RTDs online and these little LED screens that read them. And I put them in the engine. I put one in that hole. I put one in the crossover. I put one in the front of the head and on the other side. And I put on the dyno and I started doing pulls. And I'm watching all these temperatures move. And in cruise, pretty balanced. Wasn't too bad. It was a couple degrees off. It was pretty balanced. And you can see that when I have my videos I did later on where I have my heat gun on the head and I pinch off the mod. I can see the temperature of the head go up like 5 degrees, and then you open the mod, the head temperature drops down. And so you can see like just on the surface of the head the difference in flow through the head at idle. And that's an idle, right? An idle, the water spinning really slow, and there's not a lot of water flow at that time. So, okay, so I see some there. But when the engine's spinning, right, the pump is moving a lot of water. There's a greater differential pressure. I'm going to have more flow through the head. It's going to make up for that, right? Well, maybe. So that's what I wanted to find out. And in cruise, I found out that it did make a big difference. There was more flow into that region and the temperatures were closer. Still a smidge higher, but it was like 2 or 3 degrees. Like it wasn't like this huge thing.
Yeah.
And if I did one pull, it was, a few more degrees and that was it. But if I did a 1 through 4 rip on it, it just skewed. It just started opening up.
Yeah.
And it was so much that area, which hasn't even finished absorbing all the heat from the engine yet, right before it makes it the coolant temp sensor, got hotter than the bulk coolant temperature at the end. So all the other cylinders that put all their heat into it, it goes in a crossover tube, it gets red. This corner of the head was hotter than all the other corners and the outlet temperature of the freaking coolant. So as I ripped through it, that spot was just creeping up in temperature. And it wasn't a little bit, it was like 16 degrees. Like it was moving up a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, son of a bitch. Well, there you go. Like there was my evidence. Now, what I didn't know was that nobody would fucking believe me. That's what I didn't know. Right? I didn't take videos of it. I just was in this mindset, and I still do this all the time. And I get mad at myself. I'm done with a project. I'm like, I didn't video it, right? But I'm not thinking about videos on YouTube and shit. I want to do this thing,
Yeah.
My whole desk here is projects that I got going on. Like one project. Here's another project. Here's another project. There's another project right here. Let me show this one. Here's another project, right? Like all these things that I'm designing, and up here there's more. And I got some back here, up there. Like there's all these things I'm working on all the time, and I do them when I can, in between tunes, in between help my wife out, in between all that stuff. And I'm not like, oh, hit record, because here's footage I'm never gonna fucking edit. Like, what's the point? I don't have time to do that. And so I wasn't in that mindset, and so I didn't record that shit. And man, I wish I had. Let me tell you, because the hate that it generated, it was just unbelievable, honestly. And I was so weird because I was like, I spent 18 years analyzing this engine. Then finally one day it comes to me, and then I spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars and hours figuring out how to get a fucking temp sensor in the front of the head when there's a time belt in the way, and then run these tests on it. And honestly, like I said, when it was in cruise initially, I was bummed out because the delta wasn't that high. I was like, oh, that's not it, right? It wasn't until I started doing more polls and doing things I realized that when the delta started to grow a lot. And so all that stuff would have been there. Dom's sad face when it didn't work out. Dom's happy face when he realized something was working. None of that was there. And so it just became, oh, here's another. Let's see there's another one that I'm doing.
That.
Say what?
What the hell is that?
Yeah. So in Idaho, you are permitted to make your own suppressors.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
No, it's not. This is a prototype design of what one would look like, but plastic.
Well, yeah,
you're not doing shit with it. But yeah. So all kinds of stuff. Yeah, for the fuse. Thank you. It's a muffler. Thank you, Adam. Adam knew what was going on.
That is a muffler he's making there.
Yep. It's a solvent trap.
Yes.
I've got my oil filter that I'm doing, right? I've got this oil filter I've got just so many things at one time on my desk. Here's some
So
connectors for a harness I'm making.
you're showing you kind of go to the community with this idea of yours.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking in PUBG about this again. So we're on Discord, we're hanging out, we're talking in PUBG, and you told us about the tests you ran. You're
Mm-hmm.
and we're all like, we were even skeptical. We're like, there's no way that Subaru would have just let this happen for this long. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way that he just found some like magic little
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
when you finally released it, the amount of people who lost their shit over this was unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely unreal. Because I ended up with one of your like first run prototypes. It's still on Boogie. Like,
Nice. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Is that the Anthrax gig?
yeah. It's like one of the really, really early ones. Yeah.
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 Definitely not Anthrax. That's right.
Yep. I remember that now.
I wish you still had that.
I
So for
don't know
those
if
that
I
don't
do.
know
Yeah.
what we're laughing about, he wanted a cooling mod. I was like, all right, cool, I'll send you one. And so I cut out a shape of a penis, and then I used magazines to create a font that was like magazine clippings for like like a like the '90s movies when they have like a ransom note and it's cut out of words so that you can't analyze the handwriting. So I
Yeah.
did that and I wrote definitely not Anthrax, and then I poured a bunch of baking soda into the bag. I sealed it up and sent it to you, and it said, "Yeah, definitely not Anthrax."
Oh
Oh man,
man.
you were
Yeah.
fucking dying when you called me after you got that.
The guys
um,
who opened the boxes were just like, what the hell just got sent us? We thought it, I don't want to mention his name too loudly, but we thought it was a particular person who sells suspension, and basically the internet hates him, who we're having words with at the time. So we're like, holy crap, what
mhm.
did he just send us? Either way, you release this really basic looking piece, okay? It
Yeah.
literally looks like a freaking hose with a stupid fitting and a T on it, and you're like, this is gonna fix your shit, and everybody goes, the fuck are you talking
Fuck
about?
you. Yeah. They're all like, yeah.
Everybody was like, dude, just get fucked. Um,
So
okay.
let me talk about that a smidge.
Yeah.
I preach all the time that the OEMs are not stupid. And I tell people all the time that if you think the OEMs are dumb, you just don't understand what they were doing when they did it. A lot of people fail to realize that their motivations and our motivations are different. They failed to realize that they're not trying to make a race car engine out of a fucking Impreza, right? They're trying to hit emission standards. They're trying to hit a baseline fuel economy standard. They're trying to hit a longevity standard, and then they're trying to get as much power as they can, make it sporty, to do that. And so when you look at the FA, I think that's a perfect example of that. The FA20, if you look at the goals that Subaru had, it's an amazing engine. It nails all those goals perfectly. It has excellent fuel economy. It burned way cleaner, other than some obvious issues with fuel injectors. But like the FA hit all those marks. It had tons of torque. It was a great engine. But the FA20 for 600 horsepower sucks my left nut.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean they made a bad engine, right? Their goal was 300 or
Yep.
275 or 276, right? That was their goal, and they nailed it. And when the EJ was created in 92, right, the goal was 110 horsepower, 115 horsepower, whatever. And then it went up and it went up and it went up. But the cooling system didn't change because the block was this fucking same. So now this block that had more than enough flow for 110 horsepower, had more than enough flow for 165 horsepower, just isn't quite there for 300. And To change that would be a complete architectural redesign because the way the water is fed into the block is the problem. That's a whole architectural change in that engine. You can't just move that water crossover in those blocks. The way that the mains are lined up, the way the crank is, right? You just can't do that. And so
Yes.
you look at the STI, and it was what, 295? No, it was 300 the first year, and then in '08 I think it went down to 295, and then it went up to 305. Right, it fluctuated as they changed the standard for horsepower in an automotive engine, but basically 300, 305 has been where it's at since 2004. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't moved, and it is that it hasn't moved because Subaru couldn't figure out how to make more power, right? It just couldn't stay together. If I do a pull and I develop a 16-degree delta on one cylinder versus another at 300 horsepower, that delta is going to be greater at 400, dramatically greater.
Exactly.
It's even more at 500. It's even more at 600, right? That delta is going to grow because the BTU ratio between them, right, is gonna be the same, but that means the difference in actual BTUs grows, right? Because 10% of 10 is 1, but 10% of 100 is 10, right? And then 1,000. So like
Yep.
you that delta grows as you apply power. So it isn't like they couldn't figure it out. They just require a complete articulate change, and their goals weren't 400.
No,
Like
their
there's
goals
this
were
like
never to make that. Like if you look at an EJ, that's definitely an engine that was designed for the early 90s. You know what I mean? You just look at it. You look at the head design and things you can tell that's a 90s engine. It looks way more like a 4G63 than it does an FA if you really like you're looking at it from a I guess an architectural standpoint,
not
it
just that, but do you know who did the original EJ?
blow my mind.
Stoners in Washington.
Okay.
Western Washington University
Yeah.
in Bellingham, Washington, worked with Subaru and they designed the first EJ.
Well, I
It
just learned
wasn't even
something.
Subaru. Like it was the students. They started the EJ. That was the birth of it. It was dual overhead cam. It was the first dual overhead cam. They did the whole thing, and it was them. They started it,
Yeah.
and they started with what was before the EA? I think it was the EA,
Yeah.
and then they took one of the old the single overhead cam engines and they made the first dual overhead cam version of it. Right. So like they, it was students back in the 90s, that were largely involved in this. Yes, obviously Subaru has engineers who've gone through, have taken up the reins and modified things, changed the heads, changed the cooling the heads, which you've seen in '07. They changed the heads and cooling the heads. They opened up the bottom of the head on the exhaust side where the most stagnant region is. They've opened that up to try and improve the flow through it. That helped some, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So like Subaru has addressed it in some ways. They've added cooling to the exhaust side of the chamber. And why they haven't done what I did, I don't know the answer to that, obviously, but like I don't think they had to. Not just that, but
I want to
they
talk
made
about
this
is
engine.
I want to talk about exactly how the cooling mod works because I don't think a lot of people quite understand that.
Mhm.
Okay. Because it's not feeding coolant through there, it's pulling it. It's just giving it
Correct.
an escape route.
Yeah. So basically, all I did was I increased the amount of head that region gets, and head is a term for the amount of driving force of a fluid. So you have your pressure head, right? And what I did is that pipe goes to the suction of the water pump. So all I did was add a little bit of water pump suction to the corner of the head there to decrease that stagnant region. Now, does
Yep.
it fully balance the engine? No, it does not fully balance the engine. Remember earlier when I said as you increase the power, that delta goes up? I
Yes.
pushed that delta back down, right? So the cooling mods push that delta back down. There's still a delta, but
Yes.
it's way, way less than it was. And that's great because with 300 horsepower, the little delta, it's acceptable for the most part, right? Unless you're doing big long pulls. Yeah, 400 horsepower, that delta's getting bigger, and it's a concern sooner in a pull than it is, at 300. At 500,
Yep.
the delta grows even quicker, right? And so all I did was take that and I shoved it down. It's still the most aggressive cylinder, and I've said that 100 times in my videos and stuff. It's still the most aggressive cylinder, and you can make it as aggressive as you want by adding timing or pulling fuel or doing whatever you want. You still have the power, and that was why I did it, and that's why I didn't make it completely full flow. Because one, I wanted to shrink the delta. I wanted to stay aggressive, but I wanted also to push the aggression towards parameters that the tuners had control over. Push that aggression towards things that you could, I have light timing there. Like it'll want that, like that'll keep
Yep.
this knock sensor active and stuff. You never want knock, but if you're going to have it, you definitely want to be close to the knock sensor. So, what,
Exactly.
how aggressive you're getting when you're getting there. So you still have that. I just took that delta out and then I shrunk it down. And you can see that in the EGT test that one of my customers sent me. I had that picture up for a long time, but I took it down because nobody understood what was going on with it. The delta that he had before the mod was a lot larger. And then after the mod, the delta was a lot closer.
Yeah.
And everyone misunderstood that.
It's that really, at least when I was at Sexstar still, and we were showing that off. I don't know, maybe we just had a better clientele or something. It was real easy to show that. What we were very surprised to see was the global temps, at least in our track cars, went down a little bit.
About 5 degrees ish.
Yep. Which
Yep.
I'll take 5 degrees anywhere I can get it. So, yeah, it was really cool to see that. What I thought was crazy, and even you and I were talking about this just before you released it, again, hanging out in PUBG. I'm like, you're about to get knocked off. Like, this thing's going to get knocked off in 10 minutes. And it wasn't even 10 minutes. The knockoff artist came in having absolutely no idea how it works. And then you even had people who are trying to make their own, having no concept whatsoever to how it works.
Or claiming they made it, that it was their design.
What's that?
Or claiming that they're the ones that came up with it.
This is the best one. Yeah, when they're running around claiming they came up with it. Like, are you fucking high? Oh, man. Thankfully, I think the community, there was probably about a 6-month period where everybody was like, well, I'll just get this one or I'll just get that one. Then the community kind of stepped in and went, nah, you need to get the original. And I'm actually surprised how well yours continues to sell. Like, we sell a pretty good stack of those things. We buy them in bulk. I try to get almost anybody doing a build DJ to grab one.
And I appreciate that greatly. You guys are my number one sellers. So
we try.
Yeah, it used to be you and RSD were like, ooh, this, and then RSD got purchased by that other company, and they just messed it all up.
Well, I mean,
and then I told RSD to go fuck themselves a few weeks ago. I was like, I'm not selling to you guys anymore. You're just a pain in the ass. But no, and I made the promise a long time ago, and my instruction sheet has changed over the years. But originally, I made the promise that all the money that I got from that stuff went into R&D for the projects, and it does.
Yeah.
It still does. I mean, that's why I have this desk full of projects and stuff. So
yeah,
I have taken that. I live in a manufactured home. I live in a trailer home. I don't own a Lamborghini. I'm not out there buying a bunch of toys and stuff with the money. I'm doing what I said I would do, and that is I'm making other cool shit for the community. And yeah, I love doing it. And like this filter. Have you seen my filter?
I think I've seen this before. I don't think I've seen it anything past. You were showing me CAD drawings of it. I don't think I've actually seen like a prototype of it.
Yeah, so this is the prototype. But yeah, basically it's just it's a cartridge style filter, right? And this is a high efficiency synthetic media with almost double the surface area of the factory filter.
That's cool.
And there's a lot of passion around filters in our industry, and yeah, not as much passion as cooling mods, though. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
But there's a few things I hated about our cars when the filters are too small. The bypass, I hate that filter bypasses are on the bottom because that's where sediment goes. And so when you start your car and the bypass opens up and sucks sediment off the bottom of the can and jams it right into your engine, like that doesn't make sense to me.
That's awesome.
All of the cars that I've had spin a bearing, every single one of them except for one, I said all but one did it on cold start. I fire it up, I walked away at the middle of winter, I come back, it's knocking. And I was like, what? Like it ran great on the way home. Like, what is going on? And I'm pretty certain, well, and each one the relief was stuck open. And it wasn't stuck open by bearing material on all of them. It was stuck open by just particulates. And I feel like it was the relief opening up, drawing that shit right into the engine, spitting the oil pan back into the suction. right into the relief valve. And because the pump is an unfiltered suction.
Yes.
There's no filter on the inlet of the pump.
Yep.
So it's getting unfiltered oil right into the suction of it. And the relief is integral inside the pump. And just some of that material goes in there and sticks the relief open. And the relief is wide open when you cold start. This bypass is wide open when you cold start. So they're both wide open and flowing. Then the crap from this one goes into that one. It starts to shut. It gets jammed open. And then I'm sitting there eating my freaking Cheerios, and my car oil pressure is going.
Yeah,
As it
you get
heats
a bad
up. Yeah, and then it's knocking. And so that's what I believe was causing most of those failures. And so I just don't like having the relief on the bottom. So I wanted to change that. I also don't like how when you unscrew this thing, oil just,
yeah.
all down it. I hate that. It drives me crazy.
Yep.
So I have a drain for the filter, just like a petcock or just like a drain for your oil pan. There's a drain for the filter. You take it off and it drains the filter out. And then you turn it off and pull this guy off and then pull off your cartridge filter and oopsie, that doesn't come off. That's threaded on the engine, but then pull it off and have it on. So that's the design basis for this guy. But it's that kind of shit I'm always doing, trying to get something that works better than what's available.
You ever going to make a bigger one for like a GM style filter for us psychopaths who have already moved our shit around?
Have you seen my external filter setup?
I don't know.
No, obviously not, because you asked about that, right?
Yeah.
I haven't made it yet. I designed with this whole thing. It's a modular setup. You can add filters to each other. You can just bolt them to each other. You take out two plugs, put them together, and you get more filters in parallel if you want. And so I have filters, oil cooler, and with thermostat and oil pressure regulator built in this modular setup. So you can defeat the regulator in your factory pump so that it doesn't stick open and get crap through it. So now your oil pressure regulator is one post filter, because the engine seed was post filter, not pre filter, and filtered, right? And now it's also filtered. So I put this oil pressure regulator, and it's all modular. You just bolt them together, and you just have this nice little thing. And it uses like N54 cartridges filters. So you undo the top, just like an N54, and then you pull the cartridge out, another one in, and screw the top on. I'm still in development of that one because I had it all done, and then I realized I had the flow backwards through the thermostat. And I was like, shit. And I was very discouraged. I didn't want to continue. I just kind of like, and gave up for a little while. But that's one thing I gotta get back to, so that you can have this remote filter setup with, again, regulator, thermostat, plate, and all that. So all you have on the bottom of the car is just your distribution plate. No thermostats, no stuff hanging down and all that. Go right to your remote location, add however many filters you want to have in parallel, and then run it back into the engine. So
that's cool. Do you think it's going to put up with pressure from a dry sump?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's not a concern at all on that.
Let's cram it.
So, I mean, it's going to be aluminum, and it'll do fine. So I just had, like I said, I got to redesign the flurry through the thermostat, and just got upset about it and haven't gone back to it yet.
So you did look at it for a couple months.
Yeah.
You go to the corner.
Well, my dry sump, I worked forever. Holy shit. I worked literally just months every day at my computer designing this dry sump oil pump.
Yep. I remember you doing that.
Yeah. And I don't know where it went. I must have it in the garage. Show it to somebody. And I finally finished, and this is awesome. I had some really cool ideas that I really liked that I had done in it. But in the end, it was still just the same fucking dry sump pump everybody else had.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not what I do. That's stupid. So I just...
There's at a certain point, you got to go. If other people are doing it or doing it as good, if you're not bringing something new,
right?
Even if you put a ton of work into it, if you're really not bringing anything new, what's the point? And I totally understand that. We've had to do that here a few times.
Sorry, I was looking to see if I can see it.
Good.
Must be in the garage. Yeah. So that I canned that, and then I started over from scratch on that one, and I made one prototype for that. But the cost of manufacture was really high, and I want to make a couple small changes, and I just haven't gone back to that one either. Because those are such high cost, low volume parts, and so few people are going to get to use them. I focused more on the stuff that more people can use.
Well, something like the cooling mod, that's, to me, I look at that as that is a community derived for the community modification. Like, that's something Gramus Forester could use all the way up to, my race car, and anything in between. And I love things like that. Some good old for everybody mods, you know what I mean? And you've always been really good at putting stuff like that together. I'm always excited to see what you're working on next. Speaking on what you're working on next, you've been showing us a bunch of fun little goodies. I'm pretty excited. What have you been up to lately? I know you're tuning. Are you still tuning at tier 1?
I mean, I use their dyno. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
but I travel. I go places. I went to Denver a few months ago. Did some cars there. I go to the west side over by Seattle. Do some cars there. Okay. But tuning wise, I love tuning. Let me just get that out there. I love tuning. I really enjoy it. But sometimes it can get a little boring. Like you do the same setup. Like, how many stage 2 EJ25s I've done in my life? Like, you couldn't even begin to count them, Yep. And I love standalones. I love the ability to apply my own concepts for my fuel models and that kind of stuff to them. It's one reason I like the Mtron and Link. I really like Link a lot. For the money, but for for the features, Mtron's the bomb for that. Sure.
We felt like every other tuner we had this 3 tuner chat. I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but it's really good. We had Mike McGinnis, Graham, and Sam at Island Performance all on at the same time. And I went from basically manual boost controller. These are anything you could do something stupid with a modern Subaru, all the way up to Bosch Motorsports ECU, and anything I could think about in between, and kind of had them like rate it and rank it and chat about it. And it was a phenomenal podcast. I wish I would have had you on it. But what it ended up really coming down to is all of them really like Link and all of them really like Mtron. And everybody else, they had a fault in everything else. Everybody was really down with Cobb, but you're limited in what you can do because it's a stock ECU. But if you've got to pass missions, but past that was like, these are really your options. And man, it was just loving Link and loving Mtron. So it's interesting to see that's, you weren't even a part of that conversation and you would have just slotted right in.
Yeah. I mean, did they bitch about Haltech like I do?
Oh yeah. In fact, that was
perfect.
Yep. Same cam pickup issues and everything. That's what I ran last year, or sorry, the year before. Well, yeah, I guess it would be last year. So ran that last year. We won a championship on it, but it had its issues. You know what I mean? And that's why I was saying going from Haltech to Mtron was night and day. Just in the way the car drove at the same horsepower, it was wild.
Dude, the throttle response is so awesome.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does make sense if you're a tuner. you would understand why it makes sense. Yeah, there's a lag associated with fuel making it to the engine. That's basically what it is, and the Mtron eliminates that fuel lag.
It's one of those things that people. It's hard to explain this to a customer. You know what I mean? Like what is this going to feel like from the driver's seat? Thankfully, I've been in a position to try a lot of really crazy things, not only with my car, customers' cars, whatever. You're the same situation where you've tried just about everything. And there's certain people, like I hit you up still to this day, like, hey man, what do you think about this? Because I put your opinion way up there. Like you're one of the top people. If I need to know something, you're probably somebody I'm going to ask. And, so when you have somebody like you saying, yo, Mtron's where it's at, like that carries serious weight. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it. Yeah. I'm happy to help. I mean, really, I do it for you guys more than me.
More times than I can count. I've hit you up with all sorts of random shit.
Yeah.
What is that? What is the red thing?
This is a 3D print of an ECU case that I made for Links. Because the Link plug and play, like you got to use a factory ECU case, and in a lot of cases, like a lot of situations, you don't want to get rid of your case, It's not as big of a deal with like the GRs with VIN locking and all of and the immobilizer and stuff, but the older GDs, you might have a 207 ECU that you've had in your swap car, and the 207 ECU you could sell if you wanted to. But when you take it out of the case, it's not this thing you're going to want to sell. Now it's just a bare board. No one's going to want to fucking buy a bare board. You know, it just doesn't seem to happen. And so, also that those cases are like really thin sheet metal, and you got to drill holes in them because you got to get the USB signal, you got to get your expansion cable, you got to get your CAN stuff out of there. And I just don't like butchering up these thin metal cases. You just cut your finger on it, you get the bends and tweaks, and you're trying to hammer it back straight again. Maybe you don't get it flat, and it, you know, a lot of guys have bent it and put the board in and shorted the board out on the bottom side. Like there's just so many things that I hated about doing that with the links. And so I went and made an ECU case. And this is the second version, the third version outside on the counter. But I made it so it fit all of the GC, GD, and all of the ones that bolt in the floorboard. And so you see it's got the mounting points in it in here and all those.
Yeah.
So it works for all of those. It's got some holes in the back for the CAN and the USB. It's got vents on the side because you know, newsflash, they generate heat. They need to cool off. It's one reason why they use such thin metal, and they're not airtight. They're not watertight. They're not airtight. They breathe. So I got fins in it, and then another thing I hate about it is when you get this case. Now here's a case, right?
There's an OEM
I got to unscrew it. I got to take this stuff apart. Got to unscrew it, get down the board. The board is then also screwed into the case. So it's just like screws for days. And when I have a link and say I wanted to add a CAN later on, or I wanted to add the expansion cable later on, or I wanted to add something, or even go, oh shit, I forgot to do the jumpers, right? I got to do the jumpers on the board. You got to unscrew all this crap again. It just didn't make any sense to me, like why I want to do that. And instead, I can have the lid like pop on and pop off, right? It's not airtight or watertight. So it's not like it has to be. In fact, my first design, this is the first design of the lid, there's holes for screws. I had screws and I would screw it into here. And then it occurred to me like, that is retarded. Why would I want to do that? So now it pops on and off, you know, little
super. So you're just gonna, it's just like little, I don't, you wouldn't call them pop rivets, but yeah, I get what you're kind of saying. They're like the little rubber things that just pop on and off.
Yeah, it's not even rubber things. It's just the way it's shaped. It's just a friction, right? So part of it has to deform, get over a ledge and lock in, and you pop it off.
Sick.
And so then it screws onto the board. It's in a basin now, right? Here's everything in there. You screw it in, you put it on there, and then if you need to do something, you just pop the top off, and you can add your wires or whatever, move your jumpers, check things out, whatever you want, and then just zip, pop back on again, and you're good to go. It made more sense, honestly.
No,
and,
I agree. And yeah, I have a feeling now with standalones, it took years for it to happen, but standalones, due to you know, the current climate of things, standalones are becoming way more prevalent.
Yes, because everybody's racing now.
Yes, everybody is going to Mexico. Everybody is building a race car.
Yeah, a lot of time attack going on.
A lot of time attack.
Grid life's blowing up. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
Some of all these cars that are building their cars for time attack actually show up. Maybe. Oh man.
And rally. That's what I'd rather do. Say what?
When are we going to see you at the track again?
That is such a source of pain for me.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I used to race all the time. It was, if there was a day I was there, and I haven't done it in years, and I jones over it so bad. But I've just been so heavy in developing stuff.
Sure.
I do stuff for side by sides. I don't know if you knew that. I bought a shock dyno so I can revalve shocks, and I can do shocks on cars and trucks and side by sides and all of that. I designed and built a turbo kit for my Honda Talon. I did a whole intake manifold setup for it too. And that was one of those things where I thought it was going to do one thing and it didn't. And I was a sad Dominic, you know. But it still had benefits, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing, and then I I keep developing stuff and taking my cars apart to use it, and then my cars stay apart for too long, and I just don't get to the track. So it's been
So how
it
about this?
sucks.
How
Hmm.
about we find some sort of event that's going on? We're gonna force you to take a couple days off and just fly out, hang out in my RV, and at a bare minimum, I'll shove you in my BRZ, and you can just go rip that for the weekend. You just arrive and drive and have a good time. That's it.
I would absolutely, I do that. I figured
Then
it
we need to work on that. You gotta
out.
get back out to the track.
Yeah, yeah, I'd absolutely do that for sure. I've been doing tuning for a drag car, a V8 turbo or turbo LS Nova. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I have.
Um,
So,
been,
just so everybody's aware, you got kind of a sick YouTube channel that I don't think gets enough play. Like,
I
if you have
appreciate it.
not subscribed to your what I is it just GetaDomTune? I don't remember what the actual. I'm subscribed to it, but I don't remember what it's called exactly.
So the link is YouTube/ GetaDomTune, but
Yeah.
because they attach it to your freaking email, it's it changed the name of it to Dominic Acia. So it's kind
Okay.
of annoying, But if you go to YouTube/GetaDomTune, that's me. So I was able to get it to lock into that.
Yeah. I think if you search GetaDomTune all like one word, it pops up. But either way, you're constantly doing like live casts and stuff like that when you're tuning
Mhm.
things and you're answering questions and I try to pop into them when I can, but they're a ton of fun. And every once in a while you'll post some stuff up. You've been tuning this big V8 car and some other things. That's how I know you're doing a lot of these crazy things. So if you guys really want to, especially when you just go live as you're tuning a car on the dyno, I find those interesting because you're basically just talking your mindset as you go through tuning this car. And I wish more people did that. I wish Graham did that. I wish a lot of other people did that because it's really interesting just to see your mindset and your approach to that. If you
Well,
ever
if
want to
just
know,
one more person did it, that'd be twice as many that currently do it.
that is true. Twice as many.
No, nobody does it. I'm the only guy. And
Many get
and
big
and
numbers. But those who are interested in it, like the people who do watch, I think are gaining a ton from it. It's like I'll be the first one to tell you this podcast is never going to get massive. Like it just isn't. Like it's geared straight towards Subaru people and it's there's only so many of us out there, you know what I mean? Um but the people we do hit, it matters, and the people you hit with that YouTube channel and especially with your streams and some of the questions you answer, dude, it's priceless. And I don't even think some of the people who are listening to it realize the amount of information you are barfing is priceless. It's absolutely priceless. So
thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, I try and I want, so my channel, it's not that entertaining, right? It's not, you're not getting a whole lot of laughs. Although I do have some good one-liners that I belch out, and that when the guys come to the window of the car and ask me questions and shit, sometimes they can be kind of funny. But overall, like it's me telling you this is how this works. One of the things that's covered a lot in almost every tuning video I do, because that's what I do, right? I fire up the stream, I'm tuning the car, I share the screen, I show you what I'm doing, and I'll go through a log and go, oh, look, we can see here that this section is wavy. And I'll tell you, well, why is it wavy? And then I explain to you why it's wavy. PID controls, I cover that a lot. And only because I don't think a lot of people understand them. And they do so much more than people realize. So I cover PID control a lot. The 2 tunes ago, I talked about how operating frequency changes the torque output of drive-by-wire systems or boost control system and all that. So I explained what the operating frequency did. I talk about injectors. I talk about different fuel models. I talk about why this sensor does, and sometimes I talk about how sensors work. So there's a lot of that stuff, and it's not super entertaining. They're not like, oh wow, this board-on tube is expanding the pressure, and that bends and flexes this little needle, right? Like that stuff is super exciting. But if you want to learn and you want to see me screw up, like that happens, in the tunes.
well, it's live.
The
Like
live.
you ain't. It's live. Like you are. This is not edited shit. It is live, and that's
Did you
what
see
I
my last
appreciate.
one?
I didn't get
You
to
see my
watch your
last one where I cried for 15 minutes on stream?
Uh-uh.
That was not in my bingo card for the day. But I got a phone call while I was streaming, and was actually extremely good news. But it was something that I didn't know that was affecting me so much that I started crying. And I just sat there and bawled to myself and apologized to the guys about I'm sorry, as I sat there and cried for a long time. Say what?
That's real. That's one of the
Yeah,
reasons I like streaming is because it's as real as it's gonna get. And that's like we don't really edit these podcasts. Like this is it. This is what you're gonna get.
yeah,
And that's that's I personally I prefer that content, Don't get me wrong, I love a Gears and Gasoline video or whatever, but it's real. And if I can't stress enough to anybody who's listening to this, you really should subscribe and make sure you turn notifications on because he goes live at some random ass times. And it's worth hanging around. Even if you just kind of have it chilling in the background, you're listening to it, you'd be surprised how much you'll learn in a very short period of time. So yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, no, I want to help people out. What's Jordan saying here? We got to change something? Am I screwed up?
No, that's all. He's just talking about how we really don't, the only thing we do is edit levels and maybe some like really huge
The
cuts.
editing. Right. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the only editing I do is leaving the microphones in the car when I go take a piss or shit. That's the important one because I almost forgot once.
Well, yeah.
Dropping a acidic deuce on TV live is not a good idea,
Yeah. I mean, I wish Graham would take his headset off when he goes to take a piss and we're playing PUBG. By the way, we're playing PUBG again. I have something because my hearing is so, I lost hearing totally in one ear, so I had to stop playing PUBG. I got this thing called an audio radar now, which around the outside of my screen, it'll light up it uses surround sound signal to like light up. So I have a concept of where sound is coming from. And it's gotten I can play PUBG again. So like we've been messing around PUBG again. So if you want to come play some PUBG, we'd love to have you. And real chill, really bad PUBG.
I mean, were we ever really good at it?
No.
Yeah.
No,
I have you Alt F10 to like save your replays and shit, right? So you can go back and see what happened. Yeah, so that folder that those go into is my salt folder, I call it. This is my salt folder, and when I open up my PC or this PC and my primary hard drive is turned all red, then I realize I got to empty the salt folder because it has way too much angry gaming experiences, and then I delete it, and there's 60 gigs released.
Anger.
Yeah, that's my anger, my salt folder for sure. God damn it. Yeah, in fact, I remember one of the last times that we played, I said it was one of the last times I played because I was tired of getting shot around the corners. I was like, okay. But that was like 10 years ago.
I mean, if you think about it, seriously, it was like 7 years ago, I think, when we were playing really hardcore. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was.
We've been at it for 2 hours, my guy. I think we're
going to call
it.
2 hours? Okay.
Yeah, dude. See? Super chill. Told you it was going to be chill.
We'll do this nothing else you want to talk about? Okay. I'll come back.
We're definitely going to do this again. Probably next time a little more structured, but I just, I wanted more people to know more who you were. I definitely want to bring you on and talk about tuning airplanes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one we didn't get to, unfortunately, and those are some of my favorite stories when you're having to like reflash an ECU in the air.
Yeah.
So I want to bring you back.
Everyone's like, what?
Yeah, I who knows? Maybe I'll bring you on with Graham, or we'll just have you on again. Especially if you got some new stuff coming out, we can chat about that and then talk about more terrible tuning stories. So these all.
I'm reading the comments here. Thanks, guys. No, Adam, I appreciate you saying that. And what else? Crash. Oh, he remembers. Yeah, I'm level 4 backpack. That's what I always joked about. So I appreciate that. Jack there, appreciate you. Thank you for trusting me. I don't know if it was my Cylinder 4 cooling mod or a copycat, but at least you're on board. I appreciate that. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Anything else I wanted to say something to before we cut this out real quick? Mary, hi Mary. Yeah, it'd be good to see you.
We need to
Appreciate
get
it.
Mary out to a Grid Life event. I want to get you and Mary out to a Grid Life event, like a
Yeah.
more of a chill one, not a big festival event. And it just, I think it'd be fun. Like
When
she
is
needs to
the
get
Denver
introduced to
one?
that whole thing, and we need to get you on track. Maybe we'll throw you both in a car.
So I have a BRZ FA20 that I was going to put in my RS.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, I'm still working on it actually. I'm going
Yeah.
to do that with I got a 2300 blower for it.
Okay. I had a guy hit me up the other day, and we started knocking ideas back and forth, but they're in a fairly restricted rally class, and they have to keep same manufacturer, and they have to keep it under 2 liter. And I'm like, I gotta be real, man. An FA20 might be the answer for you. Like, we can do a lot with an FA20, even with a stock turbo. Compared to an EJ20 for a rally car, it might be the answer for
It
you.
makes the torque. I mean, the first thing you do with an EJ for rally car is you stroke it.
Yeah,
So all of the limited class ones, all of Pastrana's cars, those all started life as a 207 that they stroked to 83 millimeters. That's how those engines are. Now I know technically they're not supposed to stroke them, but they do. And so all of those cars are 83 mil stroked EJ 207s.
yeah. So they're
Yeah,
all 2-1 whatever, but then do
right.
they, like, I guess, underbore them, or do they
I
just
don't
say
think
fuck?
so. I think they just
Yeah,
say fuck it. I think they say measure this bore and then grab their nuts and say try it. But they but the
yeah.
FA20 is already 86 mil, right? So it's already got the
Yeah.
stroke on its side for that torque and that low end.
Yep. No, that would work out good. Either way, if people were to follow you, we've already talked about your YouTube channel. You've also got a pretty banging Discord that is honestly popping off. It kind of makes our Discord look like a joke. Um, you should definitely check out your Discord. I don't know if maybe I can put a link or something like
Yeah,
that
yeah. I
in
got
here.
I got a lot of good people in it. I love my crew. I call them my crew. I have students. That's one thing I have. Let me make it here. Copy. It's just stream
Gaming and
remote stuff I'll
tuning
share.
with Dom. So
Yeah,
we'll try to put that. I'll try to put the Discord in the link on Spotify and everything else. So if you guys who are listening to this later on, you can get to that link and get to his Discord. But dude, I can't, like I said before, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of the day, coming and talking OG stuff. I'm really happy some more people will now get an idea where you came from, because I've known you as an OG forever, but a lot of people learn about you through the cooling mod, and I don't think you had the
yeah.
right
And I
idea
was
where you came
for so
from.
long before that, but I got sick, right? And just
Yeah.
briefly before we say goodbye, for those that don't know, the reason you probably haven't heard of me anymore, or because I used to run one of the top shops in the country, and we
Yep.
were doing all kinds of stuff. We were selling hundreds of motors a year. Where I was doing all this experimental shit. I was coming up with cool geometries and cool setups, and working with engine management companies and piston manufacturers and rod manufacturers. And I was working with everybody, cam manufacturers, all of that. And I got sick. I almost died. And when I was having my existential crisis as I was in the hospital, I decided I wanted to be closer to my kid, my daughter, and we got divorced, Mom and I, and she lived far away. So I said, I need to go be closer to my kid. I miss my kid too much. And so I closed the shop and I moved to Cincinnati, started working with Turn-In Concepts, and to be closer to my kid. And that was really kind of the nail in the coffin for my brand at the time, because I went there and then it kind of fell apart. There was a big transition going on, and a bunch of tuners in that side of the country were mad that I was there. They got threatened and started threatening me, and it became this whole shitstorm. Anyway, so I left and I said, F all this, I'm going back home, which is Idaho, and I'm going to school. So I would use my GI Bill, got 4 degrees, spent some time in college. And so I was gone. I was gone from the scene, other than just some minor tuning,
You really
for like,
fell off the face of the earth there for a
I
little
did.
while.
Yeah. So now it's, there's the other guys that are more known and all of that. And I'm not too upset about it. Like, I know what happened. I left a hole and it got filled in by other guys. And that's just the way it goes, but I'm a lot happier now than I was back then even. So, but that's why I just became less well known until the cooling mod popped off. And yeah, I guess that's it really. That's the story.
That's the story.
Yeah, that's the story. That's what it
All right,
is.
buddy.
So Anyways, I
We
appreciate you,
will,
man. Thank you for
yeah,
having me on. Appreciate it. I
anytime.
appreciate you guys that hung out. And again, come by the Discord if you get a question, you want to talk about something, come by one of the live streams. I'll teach you about whatever you want as long as I know what it is. And it doesn't have to be just Subarus. Cars, generals, physics, relationship advice, being a parent, whatever. So
You got to watch out. It turns into a black hole with this guy. So you'll go right down, just straight off the cliff real fast. So, all
yeah,
right,
guns.
we
All
got to
right,
call
man.
it.
Thanks,
All right.
bud.
No,
Thank you, guys.
anytime. Again, thank you for being on. We'll see you
Thank
guys
you,
next
buddy.
time. And yeah, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. All right, folks. Hope you had a good time and maybe accidentally learned something. If you could do us a solid and please subscribe. And I can't stress this enough. Share, share, share. Share the link to the podcast. Tell people about the podcast. Come on the podcast. It's we the more the merrier, and the more people we have, the more guests we can have, the more fun we can have with this. We want to make this a giant happy family. So thanks, guys.